So I call the meeting to order at 6:01 PM. We're going to get started first with the invocation. I've asked Captain Jody Hutek if you can please lead us in the invocation. If everyone could please rise.
We gather together here today with intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us.
Amen. Councilmember King.
Can you please put your hands on your heart? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This evening, we have a special presentation from Southern California Gas regarding a Resiliency Grant Award. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go first. We'll start with roll call for our attendance. City Clerk.
Councilmember Elias. Councilmember Elias. Councilmember Camacho.
Here.
Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Mayor Dr. Sanchez.
Here. Next, we go into the special presentation. And I believe we have council member that's coming in the moment, so we'll give him a few minutes if that's okay.
You're going to present You and Steve?
Mayor, our Southern California Gas representative is running a little bit late, so I'm going to have Caitlin do the second presentation.
Okay. Would you like to go back to roll call?
Okay.
Since, nope. Noted Mayor Pro Tem is present. So let's go into the special presentation. We are going to go over to employee engagement results.
Yes, at this time, Mayor, City Council, I'd like to turn it over to Caitlin McGee. As you're well aware, we're putting together our strategic plan. Part of the strategic plan was to outreach to our residents and also looking externally and also internally with the city employee engagement. And tonight, Caitlin will present those results.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Tonight, I'll be summarizing the results of the Employee Engagement Survey. As you know, over the past year, the executive team and the strategic working group has been working to develop the 5-year strategic plan for the city. The purpose of the strategic plan is to set clear goals for the city and establish detailed action plans to achieve them. The working group administered the Employee Engagement Survey and Community Needs Survey back in September 2021, and this was to collect baseline data to develop the strategic goals for the initial plan. The survey ran from September 13th through October 1st, so almost 2 weeks. This was also around the same time that we did the Community Needs Survey. We received approximately 117 responses. This is about a 51% participation rate when we're talking about our full-time and part-time employees. The survey was organized into 6 topic areas: work environment, team performance, career development, leadership, city mission and vision, and pride and commitment. I'll be diving into these topic areas throughout the presentation. So overall, I just want to give you a brief overview of the results. We're going to be looking at quite a few charts and data, so at least to summarize it, we'll start with the successes. At a high level, the data shows that most of our staff is committed to staying with the organization in the long term. They strive to provide excellent customer service to our stakeholders. They have a strong understanding of their department's priorities and goals, and feel that they have the tools and resources needed to succeed in their job. There are also some opportunities for improvement across the organization. Employees express that they lack trust in executive leadership, a need for increased communication, improved support for diversity and inclusion, and that all employees' perspectives are valued. And I think here, one of the key things I like to highlight is that that employees feel that the city's goals and priorities are unclear to them. This is a key purpose of developing the strategic plan. We'll jump into the data now. Before I jump in, we'll read these charts where the deep green and the light green are designed to indicate positive responses from the employees. The gray is neutral or unsure. And orange-red colors indicate unfavorable responses. So we asked some questions on the work environment. This was to help us understand the overall perception of the organizational culture, social behaviors, and the employees' ability to perform effectively. This chart shows that the vast majority of employees feel that their coworkers are exceptionally friendly, cooperative, dedicated to providing great customer service, and are willing to go beyond what is expected. The majority of employees, like I said, also feel like they have the tools and resources to succeed at their job. Overall, this topic area was rated the highest, and we saw the highest score across this topic area with our staff. We also asked employees to measure how they feel their immediate team performs. The purpose of this was to understand how directors and supervisors can better support them. Overall, our employees feel that their immediate teams are very productive. They feel like they're succeeding in collaborating with one another, managing their time appropriately, and are confident in their team's leadership. As a whole, again, team performance scored well across the board. However, there is an opportunity to improve communication within our teams. We also asked several questions about individual career development. Investing in employee career development can reduce employee turnover, boost productivity at work, and attract top talent. So the chart here shows approximately 57% of employees feel that their supervisors have given them opportunities to grow and improve their job skills. About 46% of employees feel that the city invests in their individual career development, and only 41% feel that there are opportunities to grow their career within the city. The next two slides are focused on staff's perception of leadership and decision-making. The majority of employees say that they have a high level of respect for their department heads. About 45% of employees feel that leadership is interested in their overall well-being. And approximately 30% of employees say that they believe the city manager will act on the results of this survey and feel that they understand why leadership makes the decisions that they do. Some more questions on leadership and how employees perceived what leadership values. So the majority of employees here feel that leadership values their safety in the workplace. As you'll see in the chart here, fewer employees feel that diversity and inclusion and everyone's perspective is valued. So with our eye toward the strategic plan, we asked several questions about the city's mission, vision, and values. Only 35% of employees feel that the city's goals and priorities are clear to them. We then asked employees if they understand how the work they do relates to the goals and priorities of the city council, city manager, their department head, and their immediate teams. You'll see here that the majority of employees understand the priorities of their immediate teams, but much fewer understand the priorities of city council and the city manager. Overwhelmingly, 82% of employees are committed to staying employed with the city for at least another year. And also the vast majority of employees are proud to tell people that they work for the city and would recommend the city as a place to work. I think these sets of questions show that our employees are proud and committed to the organization. So we wrapped up the survey with two questions really asking for staff's perspective and recommendations focused on organizational and financial health. So this question here asks, what actions can the city take to ensure the long-term financial health of the organization. The top-rated item here is to pursue creating new revenue-generating programs. And at the bottom of the list, we have embedding social and racial equity into decision-making. Similar to that question, we also asked what actions the city can take to ensure the long-term organizational health. And at the top of the list there, we have improving communication from the top down. And at the bottom is establishing an employee recognition committee or program. So we have all this amazing data. What are we going to do with it? Over the next month, in alignment with the development of the strategic plan, the strategic working group and executive team will develop recommendations to address change. We will then develop individual departmental action plans and goals, then implement those action plans over the next several months. Although the purpose of this survey was to provide context for the strategic plan, it doesn't just end here. We plan to administer a one-year pulse survey in the fall to measure progress towards these improvements and changes. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Let's go down with Councilmember Lara.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. The 117 responses, did you notice a big difference when you took a look at those employees that are in the field and those employees that work in the office? Sometimes there's that rift, right? Like sometimes in nursing, there's a rift between day shift and night shift, right? Because we encounter different things. And likewise, those employees that work in the field encounter, they're in the sun, they're in the middle of a ditch, their hands are dirty, right? They're doing a different type of work. And I would imagine that sometimes some of them could say, you know, we feel unappreciated. So did you notice any of that? Were you able to break that down? Because then I'm just trying to think, how can we focus in on going to, right, putting the water where the fire's at, right? Breaking it up into departments, is there one department that feels a little bit more unappreciated or they're not getting clear communication from us, right? So were you able to notice anything like that?
So when we put out the survey, we did ask employees to identify which divisions they're in, so we could kind of go through the data at that granular level. But we also decided not to combine or look at data for teams that are smaller than 5, really to preserve that the responses are anonymous and that employees felt confident in providing their feedback. So I will say that we do have data for these larger groups, and we do see variations across the different teams. Nothing terribly outstanding, but we do see differences, and I think that we'll be reviewing that more in detail with our directors over the next month or so.
Thank you. Councilmember Litz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good presentation. This is excellent data. I kept on circling a lot of different things here that when you have the data in front of you, you're able to either fix the things that are broken, or be the same. And I'm confident that we're going to fix the things that are broken and be in a lot better position. 117 responses out of how many total employees?
So I believe it's 200 and I want to say 220 or 30, but that includes our part-time employees, some that don't have access to computers. So I believe we have 134 full-time employees here. So when we put that number into context with our full-time employees that have computers, our participation rate seems much higher.
Was the participation optional or mandatory?
It was optional.
Okay.
Optional and completely anonymous.
How would you feel about making the responses mandatory so we have accurate data?
You know, at least from my experience as a staff member, pursuing a mandatory employee survey.
Anonymous.
anonymous, right? It's difficult to make sure we're tracking down which employees are responding to the survey when we are trying to preserve that those responses are anonymous. For this survey, we used SurveyMonkey, the online platform, and the only information we have are our IP addresses, right? And we can't and won't track down which employees have responded. So it would be probably difficult to make it mandatory in the future.
And my final question, when questions would ask the employees about the executive level, what category is that specifically?
So I think in the survey, we specifically defined it as our department heads, the city manager, assistant city manager, so our staff here.
Okay.
It did not include city council.
Okay. Well, I'm as a council member, I'm open to constructive criticism, and this was fantastic. And I will listen to this and do what I need to do individually to be a better council member for the community and for the employees of Pico Rivera.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just a statement. Thank you for this survey and presentation. I think this well illustrated, and it's great that we're doing this, and I know we're going to implement those recommendations. And the more we continue doing the surveys, the better it is that we can measure our successes within the organization as well. So thank you for that.
I'm really impressed with the candor. The thing that concerns me is the same item that the Councilman Lutz had brought up, is the 51% participation rate, in the responses. If there was a way that we were able to get a larger sample size, I would, I would welcome it. You listed challenges here that are enormous. Are we going to be able to do it?
I'm confident that we'll make some progress in these challenges. I think, too, what's important is that these challenges aren't necessarily unique to our organization. Most cities or large organizations have pretty much similar challenges, right? So there's many solutions that we can look at and try to implement over the next year.
One of the items that more support for diversity and inclusion. Do you have any idea of what they meant by this?
So, unfortunately, we didn't have an open-ended response box for that question. And there's many ways to implement that. For example, at least Prime, right? We have a membership with the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, right? So there's many organizations and opportunities for us to implement this citywide. And maybe in our one-year pulse survey, if that's an area that we want to focus on, we do dive deeper with our questions on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I have a question. So in regards to the work environment, especially given the environment of COVID right now, were any questions asked if they feel safe in terms of we're giving out masks, giving testing? I know some workplaces aren't engaging in that as aggressively, even though it's law. Were there any comments or questions towards that area?
So we didn't dive down that deep, but we did ask a question specifically if employees felt that leadership valued their safety. That's on slide 8 there. We have about 60% of employees stating that they feel that leadership has valued their safety. And we have to make some kind of assumptions there around COVID and these last few years, but definitely something we can consider asking as a follow-up in the pulse survey.
Thank you. I especially like your suggestions in the sense of we have had a cohort of retirees, and recognizing those that have retired are planning to retire, as well as those have completed their 5-year anniversary, 20-year anniversary with us, and recognizing the work that they do, especially during these unprecedented times, right? So I like that suggestion a lot. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you.
And let's go on to the next item. We have a special presentation from Southern California Gas regarding a Resiliency Grant Award. I believe we have a special guest.
We do. We have a special guest. We have Julia Emerson with us from SoCal Gas. She'll be here to present the grant for the city of Pico Rivera on climate adaptation and for resiliency planning. So I'll hand it over to her.
Hi,
You're
thank you.
welcome,
I am
Julia.
Julia Emerson with Southern California Gas Company. It's great to be back in person. Thank you. I'm here tonight to make a very special presentation because the city of Pico Rivera has won something very special. The Southern California Gas Company decided to put together a competition for a climate resiliency grant. And so we put together this grant competition, and your staff has created one of the 3 winning grants. And so the city of Pico Rivera will be winning $50,000 for your climate action plan or related programs from the Southern California Gas Company. I'm very happy to do this. This is all part of the gas company's, I would say unusual, maybe even unique, program to go net zero by the year 2045. Our, what we call our Aspire 2045 goals go far beyond grants and go to what we are actually doing as an energy company. This may be considered pretty unusual for a fossil fuel company to say, yes, we're going to go net zero, and we are already on our way. We're working on hydrogen programs and other things that will be making our energy resources available to your residents, available to your businesses, available to your city facilities. But in the meantime, I'd like to make a presentation of a giant check. And should I come around? What would you like me to do? Would you like to come over here? How shall I do this?
Yes,
Do I come
on
up and
here,
see
come
you?
up here, yes.
Thank
Please
you.
join us up here. Thank you.
Gabe's ready. No, you go up there. No? Does she go up there? No, 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 just. All right. We're gonna be asking them for the other 100.
Thank you so much. We're so excited.
I know you can take this right to the bank, yeah?
Thank you
Now,
very
let's
much.
see. We're going to do this pretty high, yeah?
Caitlin,
Not to cover your heads.
Well, I am kind of non-tall, but I'm working on it.
she said non-tall.
Come on in.
I gotta use that one. I use fun size.
I'm smiling.
Come on up, Steph.
And I want to tell you that Caitlin McGee and Ashley Cooper were critical staff on this grant.
Come on up, Ashley.
When over 200 cities were invited to compete and only 3 won, it's because of these 2 staff members right here. You say staff alone, do you want me to? Okay, I just thought I'd check.
No, I'm.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I thought I'd check on the check. All right. We
This
level?
is all them. This is their glory.
I only go when
We're going green. I even wore my green jacket.
Say it louder so Julia.
Congratulations. Thank you for all that you've worked with behind the scenes, as we've done. Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see
I
you
shake your
again.
hand, but
Is
I'm
it fitting
gonna
your
wave.
dress? Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Put it in your office.
Thank you. I get to come in person.
Congrats, Ashley. Good job.
See you. Take care.
Yes, yes. How you doing?
Hi, Angelina. Thank you for giving us.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you to our staff. Thank you, Julia, for coming in as well and presenting that to us. Do I have any comments from the council? Yes, Andrew.
No, thank you very much. Thank you to staff. Thank you to Ms. McGee, Caitlin. Thank you to Ms. Ashley Cooper for spearheading this. Thank you for the rest of city staff for supporting them. And this city does really great things when it comes to access funding. Everyone should be complimented. And it's only for the betterment of this city. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Councilmember Camacho.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and again, congratulations to Caitlin McGee, for, I know you've taken on a lot of work. You know, I know from the days when we started Prime, and our former Assistant City Manager, Catherine Francis, led that effort, create a sustainable division there. But you've taken the realm, and obviously it's a good example of what you're doing. So again, congratulations to you and the entire team. But just want to highlight your work. Thank you, Caitlin.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It always feels good that we have top-notch employees working for our city, and an example of that is when we win an award for their excellent service to our community. And we're so glad that the two of you, Ashley and Caitlin, that the two of you were highlighted amongst all the other employees here in the city. And it makes me feel proud that we have a good employee base here, and it's only going to get better. Thanks again.
Councilmember Elias.
I don't know what to say. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'd like to say thank you too. Thank you, Julia, for coming in, and thank you, Kylie, Ashley. I feel like we've grown together. I met Ashley at the Pico Rivera Teen Center or Youth Center several years ago. I was the Parks Commissioner, and I don't know your exact job title, but I know that we were working with the kids together at the park. So I feel super proud too. So thank you so much, and we're so happy to receive this award. Thank you. So let's go on to our agenda. City Manager, are there any changes to our agenda?
Yes, Mayor, City Council. Item number 12, I'm pulling that item until we get formal approval from the Army Corps. We had requested that. It was supposed to come and it hasn't, so out of caution, we just want to wait till that comes in.
Okay, so then the regular agenda will only consist of item number 13. Okay, let's go on to public comments. We only have one written comment from Mr. Jose Sanchez regarding the Rosemead Boulevard trench repair. And in addition, we have individuals who can call in this evening. So I would like to read under provisions of the Brown Act that are temporarily waived pursuant to the Governor Newsom's executive order, N-25-20, N-29-20, and AB 361. All members are able to email public comments as prior to the meeting, as well as call in via phone or computer. So City Clerk, do we have any members who would like to speak this evening? Okay, please bring in the first member or resident speaker.
First speaker, Eugenia Lopez. Eugenia Lopez.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and fellow residents. My purpose for speaking tonight is to bring to your attention and also to request an update to the city ordinance that addresses disturbance of the peace to include a time element. For example, like most cities have something in place from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. There is to be no music that disturbs the sleep or rest of the residents. The reason being is that since 2018, with current changes in society, that reflect in people's behavior. Since 2018, parties in the 1%, I would say, in the area where I live, which is zoned as residential, not mixed use, has currently parties that begin at 4 p.m., say Saturday, and will continue the following day past 4:30 a.m. This is now on record. Like I say, it's only 1%, but because of the, like I say, the ordinance doesn't specify that, it has made it difficult, I would say at this point, being that I am in contact with the sheriffs and I do phone them when this issue arises. And they do go out many times. And I think with total disregard for them, they don't heed what they're asked to do. So they have to come out several times, and you have to keep in mind that also there are other things happening within our city that require their attention. So it's left on the back burner. So this problem in 2018, it began with 2 a.m. parties that would end at 2 a.m. Now, like I say, as of December 2020, a party will begin on Saturday about 4 p.m. and continue on past 4:30 a.m. And it brings up, I know, several issues in terms of zoning, in terms of what is allowed, and in terms of just a total disregard of those few residents, because the majority are pleasant, friendly, approachable residents that if they have parties, they will end at 12 o'clock. No necessity to phone the police department in order for them to do so.
Okay, thank you.
It
Thank
is
you for
only,
calling
like
in.
I say, the 1% that need that guidance. And therefore, that's why I'm requesting that the ordinance that currently does not have that time element in place be updated to give a certain times like most surrounding cities do.
Thank you for calling in. That's your time for today, for this evening.
Yes.
If I could ask the city manager to follow up and regarding our current ordinance and see if there's anything that we can do with that.
Definitely, Mayor. We'll take a hard look and see if there's areas that we can improve on.
Yes, and if you can contact her. Thank you so much for calling in this evening. Can we have
Thank
the
you.
next speaker?
Next speaker, Jeff Spickler. Jeff?
Hi there, my name is Jeff Spickler. I work with Sci-Fi Networks. I didn't intend to select the public comment box, but I am on here with our president, Scott Bradshaw, for the development agreement discussion. So I will go back on silence until that portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And our last speaker, Jose Sanchez.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Jose Sanchez speaking once again on the Rosemary Boulevard Trench. The thumping, pounding, and vibration is worse than before. The pounding vibration is so severe that the ground moves and shifts and everything nailed and hanging on walls is coming loose. The trench work done last year in December under CIP 50038 failed. No concrete, no dowel pins. Instead, what was implemented was a process that was deemed ineffective and rejected in 2019. A trench dug, widened 1 to 5 feet, and backfilled with slurry sack to build the base and subbase, but the bridge concrete was not restored, not repaired, and just packed with asphalt again. The trench needs to be fixed properly and fixed soon. This is what the planning in CIP 50041 approved by this city council on September 14, 2021 was intended to do. A process similar to what the Federal Highway Administration standards are for concrete repair was ignored. Why put in so much engineering work? A geotechnical assessment, a planning for an effective repair, identify a contractor, cost it out, get it approved by the city council, and soon after, with the power of a change order, unrecognizable change. Does this make sense? Is that the city council care? I had a meeting last week with the city manager and the interim public works director to discuss the failed trench rework. My thanks to the city manager for reaching out after the meeting and letting me know that there will be immediate action to take some sort of temporary repair mitigation for the pounding and the vibration, and that I doubt then concrete repair will be put in place. I am available to discuss it at any time should they call. My question to the city manager, however, is when will this take place? And will the trench rework again be some sort of modified made-up engineering, or will it follow what was approved in CIP 50041? Perhaps the city manager can clarify this, and I hope that he can speak to that today, because I really don't know exactly where we stand, even though we had that conversation by phone earlier in the week. So thanks.
Thank you for calling in, and we did receive your email as well. So we will continue to give you correspondence with the city manager and updates. So thank you. There are no other speakers this evening. So let's move on to the next agenda item. We have items on the consent calendar, items number 1 through 11. Do I have a motion to approve items? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I second.
A second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? All, it's unanimous. Next item we have is regular agenda item number 13 regarding the development agreement with Sci-Fi Networks for citywide fiber optic network installation at no cost to the city. That's wonderful.
Yes.
So, city manager?
Mayor, City Council, I have Terry Rodriguez online to start the presentation. We also have the principals for SoFi as well, ready to answer questions. Terry?
I would also like to read a statement here that we have in the agenda, just so the residents and viewers know. Please be advised that there exists the possibility of technological interruptions in telephone and Zoom connections. Sometimes it's beyond our control of the city or the staff. Every effort will be made to reestablish the connection and virtual participation of the council meeting. Your patience and understanding is appreciated. So thank you, everybody. We will have a couple glitches here and there, but if your patience will be appreciated. Terry, are you there?
Terry? Okay, he may be having some difficulties, but we can run to this slide. Tonight's presentation, Mayor, City Council, is a really exciting news for the city of Pico Rivera, and that's giving our residents a broadband connection, hopefully within 2 to 3 years. So
I'm sorry, Steve. I think Gabe got me unmuted here, so I apologize.
okay, go ahead, Terry.
I apologize for interrupting you, and I appreciate you taking over when we had that glitch. I appreciate the opportunity to make this presentation. It's been a number of years now that cities and really governments at all levels have been recognizing the huge value in investing in fiber optic infrastructure. And the recognition is that this improves educational opportunities for all of its residents, allows options for remote schooling and remote work, supports competitiveness for existing businesses, and promotes economic development. This has become really more illustrated and focused during the COVID pandemic, when people were forced to try to make alternative arrangements to then meeting in school or at work for activities. Let's go to the next slide, please. City Council recognized this, and back in actually January of 2020, the city approved and selected a consultant to work on a fiber optic master plan. And that master plan was presented to the City Council in August of 2021. And some of the findings of that master plan were, first, that 41% of the city has access to a fiber optic network. I want to point out that doesn't mean 41% of the city is connected. That just means 41% of the city has the ability to get fiber either at their home or business. It does not mean they're connected. And then actually only 18% of the city has access to speed of approximately 1 gigabyte or 1 gig, which means even though 41% has access, if they so choose, to a fiber optic network, the speeds of only less than half of those networks are less than 1 gigabyte. Cable and satellite can also provide 1 gigabyte speed, and I'd say most people in the city have access to that. However, the current cost for 1 gig speed to residential service, for instance, is somewhere between $100 and $300 a month, depending on the provider. The next slide, please. The master plan went on and identified options that the city could select to move forward with a fiber optic network. The first option was for the city to invest $4 million, and that would install a limited fiber ring in some of the main streets of the city, not all of them, in the hopes would be attracting investment from potential internet service providers or other providers to utilize that ring and then extend that ring into different parts of the city. The second option was to, instead of $4 million, invest $6 million to install a bigger fiber ring, still limited, that extends to connect the city facilities as well as provide a backbone ring on some of the city arterials. And then a third option was to invest $40 million to establish a city-owned and operated network. And that would be similar to setting up a water facility or an electric utility. It would be an enterprise system that would depend on selling services to pay for the cost of capital and maintenance and upkeep and operations of the system. And as I mentioned in the slide, these costs don't include inflation, market risk, or operational costs. Next slide, please. This development agreement that's being proposed this evening with Sci-Fi Network, basically it's very easy to understand. It installs fiber optic network conduit that reaches every property in the city, commercial or residential. Second, most important thing is it creates an open source system. And what that means is it is the fiber and the conduit it's in is owned by Sci-Fi, and their business model is that it's open source and they will sell space in their fiber to any number of internet service providers who wish to lease that space. They are not internet service providers. They do not provide content. They basically own the facilities that the content travels on. And this system has shown in the places that we've seen them work, it shows to be highly competitive and provides for really favorable pricing to the end user. This would be as opposed to having a provider, and I won't name any providers, but a specific provider coming in and putting in a system in the city and then having that system only be used for that provider. That would limit competition. And I thought about this, and maybe the model I can point to is quite a number of decades now ago when a cable TV company would come to cable provider, not a TV company, cable provider would come to a city, enter a franchise agreement, and install cable throughout the city. Well, then, as we all know, the residents in the business had one choice of provider. And that led to a number of, I would say, price inefficiencies that didn't really go away until other competitors such as satellite streaming or high-speed internet started competing with cable companies. And this, I think, avoids that whole cycle. The third most important thing, I think, is that it's designated to accommodate up to 10G. So that means 10 times the speed of what we were using as a benchmark in the city in evaluating current systems. Not everybody needs 10G now, but it's built that way because, as we've all seen, every year or few years, it seems the need for higher speeds develops, and both residential customers and commercial customers start finding reasons to need higher speed. And so this network will be designed to accommodate 10G, which is ultra fast. Zero capital investment by the city. Since there is no capital investment, entire financial risk is borne by Sci-Fi networks. Sci-Fi is, once they install the system, they will be the ones negotiating with internet service providers, and ultimately they will bear the risk of negotiating good deals with internet service providers, and then signing up those internet service providers signing up enough customers to make their financial arrangement profitable. There will be some expenses that the city incurs during this process, but the agreement provides that all of those expenses will be reimbursed by Sci-Fi as part of the project costs. The next slide, please. Some additional items that I think it's important to mention. First is a smart cities agreement. And a smart cities agreement is an agreement that the city and Sci-Fi will be working on during the first 6 months of this agreement. And it will be brought back to the city council for consideration and ultimately approval. And this will address items such as existing and future demand points for all the city buildings and city services, libraries, schools, electrical connection locations, costs, speeds, performance indicators, the types of features that will be included, service levels, and maintenance of demand points. And this Smart Cities Agreement basically relates to everything that's, if you will, public infrastructure that will be hooked up to the network. Second is fiber. I want to mention Fiber City has a program that provides 1 gigabyte speed for vulnerable families at a rate of $30 a month. That's a program that is funded by Fiber City. So they provide below market rates to vulnerable families. And the city is a partner with them in identifying the cutoffs and the criteria for individuals to qualify for these rates. There are also grant opportunities that are available at both at federal, state, and regional levels that can further help in bridging the digital divide. And the city plans to go after some of these grant opportunities. And if successful, these grant opportunities can be used to further reduce vulnerable family rates or add other services to city facilities and find other ways to help the community reduce costs. Next is mention the pre-installation on city paving projects. Since we've been in discussions with Sci-Fi, we had also been investigating how to position fiber optic cable in some of our early street projects. And the most notable one is Rosemead Boulevard. We're under design in Rosemead Boulevard and started to investigate how to pre-position fiber optic conduit so that when the time came that fiber optic would be installed, we would not have to excavate new pavement. And we've been doing that. We've been working with the engineers at Sci-Fi. They've been very cooperative. And we'll be installing that on all paving projects going forward so that, again, all of our new pavement that we're putting in this year will not have to be cut into to install a fiber optic cable. It's hard to tell what the ultimate cost to the users will be because that's market driven, as I've mentioned. But the model that they've used in other cities, this model, which they've used in other cities, has been experiencing market rates of somewhere between $60 to $100 a month for fiber optic connectivity, which is a very, very good value. Next slide, please. This is just the brochure for the company's fiber optic, the fiber aid program, so the Fiber City Aid program. And the program works, 3 steps now the program works. Sci-Fi Networks allocates a certain number of financial commitment and addresses that they can qualify for support. And the city then, second step is the city works with them to establish criteria and cutoffs for residents accessing that support. And then the way Sci-Fi does it is it offers a heavily reduced rate to the internet service provider going to those specific households so that the internet service provider can provide a $30 a month rate. So that's in general how that program works. Next slide, please. So the staff recommends City Council approve a development agreement with Sci-Fi Networks to install a citywide fiber optic network available to all properties at no cost to the city. And of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And as an earlier caller mentioned, Scott Bradshaw, the president of Sci-Fi, is also on the line should you have any questions for the company.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the development agreement with Sci-Fi Network?
I have no problem making a motion.
We can have a motion, a second, then discussion, or do we have questions first? Let's do
your
that.
desire.
Okay.
What
You
would
want
you
a
like?
motion?
Motion? I make a motion.
Okay. And Councilmember Camacho second, and now we can have a discussion.
Excuse me, Mayor, what was the motion?
To approve, the motion is to approve the development agreement with Sci-Fi Network
Can there be
for
some
staff
discussion before we
recommendation.
do that, or?
Well, that's the first, the second, and now we're in discussion.
Okay. One, I'm very excited about this project. I believe that bringing fiber optic to every property, that was called the last mile in the last presentation that was presented to us last year, was going to cost somewhere in the realms of $40 to $50 million. City money. This is no cost to the city. And it brings a level of competition and variety that I believe the residents in the city don't currently have. As far as I understand, there's really only one fiber optic provider in the community, and they just recently ran the cable. But my question is about the contract here. Regarding other provisions, I just want this explained. The term of the agreement will be for 32 years with 2 30-year renewals. Maybe if someone can Sci-Fi, or maybe our city attorney can just kind of put that in English a little bit more for us and what our commitment's going to be. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council, that is in order for the company to pencil out its investment, that is the request that they have made to the city in terms of the length of the agreement. Again, the president of the company is on that if he wishes to explain how those years and numbers come together, or if Terry wants to tackle that, it is at the request of Sci-Fi that they are allowed to operate for that period of time.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Councilmember, is that there is no exclusivity on this agreement outside of the very first year. so that even though we have an agreement with Sci-Fi Networks, and it does have provisions in there to cancel if necessary, that if another provider, or if for some reason the city even decided to install its own, there would be no restriction in this contract from either agreeing to allow another provider or city doing its own system as well. And I'd certainly open it up to Scott if, Scott, you wanted to address the question of the 30 years.
Indeed. I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I certainly appreciate the time you're putting to aside this evening just to consider the large-scale private investment. We're super excited, and I really do hope you are also. So the key thing about the term is the longer we're able to have access to the public rights of way under this structure, ultimately the longer we can amortize the project. If we take these tens of millions of dollars of private investment and we try to make it amortized over, say, 5 years or 10 years, the cost we would have to charge the private ISPs to come on the network to then provide these superior fiber optic services to the community would be at such a rate that they actually wouldn't be able to present them at a competitive rate. So ultimately, we're taking a lot of money, spreading over many, many years, just like how we would take out a mortgage at home, where we have a 15 or 20 or a fixed rate, a 30-year fixed term, and spreading it over as many years as possible with the ultimate goal of having the lowest possible wholesale rate that I'll be charging the private industry, which means they can offer the best services for the lowest possible retail rate to the constituents and businesses. And that's exactly what's being seen in our current California and other communities across the 7 other states that we're investing in, where the actual retail rate for symmetrical gigabit service, where we have multiple service providers competing against each other on the same network, is as standard, is for $60 all in to the resident. And that also allows us that mechanism through a philanthropic approach to significantly and heavily subsidize by lowering the wholesale rates to support vulnerable families, school meal program families, housing development families who don't necessarily have much disposable income every month. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. And thank you for considering the city for such a large investment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? Councilmember Camacho?
Yeah, I just wanted to also concur with Councilmember Lada in regards to the value importance to our community having broadband, and the assessment we did last year demonstrates, and the 3 recommendations that were provided demonstrates the importance that the city council places on broadband. And we saw it more during the pandemic when our kids were at home distance learning, and we got to see even more so deficiencies too. But even the option, one of the options, the least expensive one, was several $1 million. That was just a small portion of what we can do to see this at no cost to the city and develop the infrastructure, fiber optics, laying it out through the city. I mean, I think it's the right direction to head, and it's like a good partnership in the sense to our community. I do have a question though, as it relates to the timeline. In the report, it talks about design completed within 6 to 12 months, and then construction between 2 and 4 years. There's a big gap in just the timeline. Is the company giving itself that kind of parameter because of what exactly? So I guess that's a question to the president, or.
So the time, and I just want to make sure I heard you right. The question is in respect to the timeline to build actually the infrastructure throughout the city. Is that correct?
Correct, because in the construction side, you add 2 to 4 years. I mean, it's a pretty large gap, and just curious why the large estimate in time.
No, and that's a very good question to ask. I appreciate that. So what we need to put into context is the scale and magnitude of what's being presented, in that I'm not just building down Main Street. I'm not just building down a particular boulevard, 10,000 feet here, 100,000 feet there. I'm actually building the entire city. And we only intend to do this once, and we want to do it right and design an architecture that's really here for the next 60, 90, 100 years long. So it has to be the most advantageous infrastructure, not only to support the residents and businesses, but also attract other to your community and support that job growth element. So with that said, the first thing we have to do is ensure that we're designing it ahead of pavement management programs. We are citing the infrastructure in a place that's acceptable to your engineering departments through the standards that really works for them and won't be burdensome. And that takes a particular amount of time to design just the entire city. If you can imagine just doing a water main, a gas main, or just doing your regular pavement programs, that's months to several years long, and we're about to do it on your entire city basis. The next elements of there is actually the procurement of power, locating the power that's going to be necessary, and also the actual connectivity from the city to the outside world, the data centers that connect you to the World Wide Web, rather than you just being a digital island. And then we add into there really shifting the pandemic and what we're all seeing and will continue to see for some time to come with access to construction resource, the products. So all of them become into play in their various elements. So what we are really aiming to do is say, okay, this is a window we know is achievable based upon several years of already doing this in a manner that we don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's not the type of partnership we like with you. So we put a necessary window in place, and then we know we have a separate window, which is a second window, which is actually constructing the entire city where the network passes everyone. That has to be done in a way where the community adopts the infrastructure and not one where it has huge social disturbance or one where it alienates them. So we want to do it in the least social disruptive manner, one that the community really likes, it really adopts it and wants to buy service. So we can do it quicker, but that means a lot more crews, a lot more trenching and cutting, and it just becomes more burdensome. That's not really what we're trying to do here. It might take us a bit longer, but we're doing it in the right way for the right reasons.
And 260 miles, 50 to 60 million, I can understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Elias.
Sir, can you help me understand this in a more simplistic manner? As I see it in my mind, is that you're going to be building a road, a highway to our community. And what you're going to be doing is that you're going to be allowing traffic to come in through this road, but you're going to charge them a tariff. Is that so?
That's correct. So we will build and maintain the multi-lane superfast highway for every year that you allow us to be in your public rights of way, and we will charge a toll to the people that want to come on and ride along that highway at these lightning fast speeds. And just to, I think as Mr. Rodriguez said earlier, these speeds as standard are 1 gigabit to the people. In actual fact, day one to the residents, day one, the network is actually 10 gigabit. So while everybody else around you is chasing a gig, you're actually going to be 10 gig ready with the city to have the ability to go to 100 gig. Obviously, so it's a very different scenario because ultimately, as Mr. Rodriguez was also saying earlier, the platform itself is actually a smart city infrastructure. It's not just fiber to the home, fiber to the business. We're designing the infrastructure to pass every person, every business, and every piece of street furniture, because potentially the biggest beneficiary will actually be the municipality on how you connect your city infrastructure to become more intelligent and how you use that intelligence to further support your community outreaches. Just in regards to obviously how the meeting opened up this evening and the great award that you received, the data you collected, how you look at that, how you digest that, and how you utilize it to be better council leaders. And we're in a similar boat.
Now, I understand all of those items and features, but what I'm a little bit concerned about is that this is a complex business model, okay, and there's a lot of nuances to it. And again, my thinking is that there has to be more time. I come from the school where I get very concerned when it says no cost to anything. Okay, I don't believe that there's no such thing as a free lunch. So, I really want to take a look at that. But the other thing is that you pointed out that it was going to be about, and correct me if I'm wrong, $60 to $100 a month?
Right now, the ISPs that are utilizing our network to provide services to residents and businesses, their pricing is $60. So it's actually $60 to the residents. We have that low income offering to vulnerable families at $30 that's being provided, which is obviously sponsored by Sci-Fi. And then we have the symmetrical gigabit broadband to businesses, which is $99. That is an incredible rate. But I recognize the question you asked with respect to, the old school thinking that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And I would say this, that if you were the first city that we were knocking on the door to offer this private investment, and I was in your shoes, I would be hesitant as well. But what should make you feel more comfortable is that Sci-Fi, this is all public domain information, Sci-Fi is backed by one of the largest pension funds in the world, an organization called APG, and they've managed just over $500 billion US, and they would like to invest capital in the ground. They're in it for the long haul, which is where Sci-Fi comes in, because it's a long-term, very, we are the boring people in the room. We are the infrastructure people, not the exciting ISPs. And the key thing there is that Sci-Fi already has 17 cities that we are investing across the country, over 800,000 premises, well over 1.5 million people. And we're allocating, again, which is public domain information, $1 billion just on projects alone. But I absolutely recognize if you were the first person, I would be hesitant. But the fact is that we are continuing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars. We have live customers. We have multiple California cities. I hope that will go a long way to easing why this actually is not too good to be true anymore.
Now, sir, I'm a frontline user of the need for this as a teacher. Okay, I understand, and I also understand the economic situation that I currently pay $70 a month for internet service. Okay, I think it's quite expensive. What we determined for families, for our families, is about a $20 a month internet fee. Okay, that's affordable, to them right now. So, my concern is that, even though we have this, we're not going to accomplish what we really set out to do, and that is to provide affordable. Now, again, we're talking about our community, affordable. Affordable in our community is about $20 a month. And we bring it down to that level.
If there was an opportunity to do that, then absolutely I would have thought that would be a topic of conversation. I'm not aware of even where municipalities are funding themselves and looking at break-even points. I don't believe actually there's anything substantially less than what our current ISPs are offering on our network. And as I say, that's where municipalities are both the funder and the ISP. So they're just looking at break-even margins, not profitability. Sci-Fi's, as I mentioned at the very beginning, Sci-Fi's goal is to offer the lowest possible cost, which means the ISPs on the network offer the lowest possible retail rates. The price points we're seeing in the market right now is the only position we're able to achieve, where it is a 100% private investment, zero taxpayer dollar investment or risk. And that's just that's the margins we're able to achieve at this time.
Thank you.
And I always appreciate capitalism and free markets and the internet. So I don't argue that we but I see that it would have to be a partnership with more than just yourselves. It would have to almost be a group of people that we agree, because we're going to have to be able to agree with the people that are using their highway and paying the tariff. If there's some way that we could benefit from there. So I think I think it's a lot more complex, than the situation of just approving this agreement. So I'm going to be reluctant to do it, because I think we need more time, really, to hammer this out and negotiate if necessary.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Bradshaw, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for coming to our city and offering the opportunity to lay the infrastructure so that the vendors of internet could come and offer the lowest rate possible. Now I have a question, and this could be to anybody. This could be for our interim public works director, Terry, or yourself, Mr. Bradshaw, or our city attorney. These are contractual questions. Is the contract right now that is on the table an exclusivity contract for 32 years plus 2 additional aggregates of 32 years?
No, the offering is non-exclusive. So if a Sci-Fi Network were to emerge tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and knock on your door and say, we'd love to do the same thing, or one of your current ISP incumbents said, actually, we'll do the same thing as well, then you absolutely have the opportunity to enter into an agreement with them. This is a non-exclusive partnership with the city. And just to be clear why we're doing it this way, we don't want to turn up, put a permit on the table and say we're constructing, because if you look at it from our perspective, that is 100% on my agenda, building it under the way we want it to be built. With the reason we've taken this approach with you is to gain city's direction for the many months that we've negotiated this, to make sure that when we design and build the architecture, it's with the community's benefit in mind. It's with economic development and job growth. And how does the city want to see it designed so that the municipality is a huge beneficiary of this as well?
And would it be beneficial for the company to have an exclusivity contract? I'm asking you as president.
We don't support that. We believe in open access. We believe in free market competition because it drives down the price and drives up the service. And actually, if you look at our model, just to segue off there, our model is based on a 3-layer model. We separate the infrastructure from the network operator from the ISP. So if you take by a simple example, like a Frontier or a Charter Spectrum, they own the copper or the fiber. They run the network operations, so they determine your quality of service, how they wish to present that to you. They decide on the products they want to sell you and the price points they want to sell it at, because you have no competition in the city. Under the Fiber City model, it's agnostic of everybody. Us as a developer have that infrastructure in place that we maintain. You have a neutral open access operator in the middle, agnostic of everybody. And so the only thing the ISPs are now doing is offering the lowest price they can for the best service they can, but with the best products supporting all of the above.
And out of the 17 cities that you're working in throughout the United States, have any of the contracts utilized profit sharing between the municipality and Sci-Fi Network to benefit the city as far as revenue to the city?
We don't use profit sharing. A lot of the market dynamics have changed over the last few years. I would certainly say that the pandemic has done that. And I cannot think of any instance all the way back to probably 2019, so many years ago now, where we actually have any form of profit sharing. What you do have is that any ISPs that come onto this network are subject to the regular franchise fees, any utility user tax fees that you put in place, or any future fees that you feel they may be subject to under the powers that you are afforded.
Would you be open to profit sharing?
No. I can only say that blunt. The reason being, I'm paying for everything. I'm paying for the connectivity, the electronics, the entire citywide infrastructure, taking the long-term risk. And ultimately, the city is not paying for anything. You're not using taxpayer dollars. I'm designing it in a way that's going to support you at the same time, rather than just pulling up a permit. It's not that we don't want to, we just don't have the actual structure because of the way we actually do the financing these days to be able to afford that type of element in our agreement.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if this question is for our Public Works Director, Terry or Scott, but out of these 17 cities, how was Pico Rivera identified, or why was Pico Rivera identified for this?
Well, it actually goes back to your early in January 2020. I think one of the people touched on it earlier. There are many cities in the US, as you know yourselves, and the key thing for Sci-Fi is who are the progressive ones, who are forward thinking, who recognize that what do you need to do to support the people, the businesses of the community, not just now, but for the generations to come, those that are not even born. So key things for Sci-Fi is looking what is the leadership in place to support the community, and then looking in regards to the demographic profiles. If we were to invest in a community, would that be job creation? Would it create job creation? Would it attract businesses to the community? Is there any infrastructure in place right now? Are the incumbents even investing in the infrastructure? So we have a huge metrics that are not only aligned with long-term institutional investments, but also keep KPIs, so performance indicators, which we would know would satisfy to attract internet service providers onto the same network, which really isn't heard of in the US, onto the same network to compete against each other, which are over an infrastructure they do not control, to serve the end users. And that's really why we approached you, because of that forward-thinking nature, the way you're looking at the community, the way you're integrated into the community, which goes back to the data analysis earlier, through to you just don't really have any long-term credible infrastructure from a telecommunication basis that we see, and we'd like to put it in the ground.
Thank you so much. And I certainly think in terms of cost, there is nothing that would hinder us from helping to subsidize the cost to residents. For instance, if we got a federal or state or local grant, that we could use those funds to help lower income residents to bring down the price, the market price of internet for these residents. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And that's actually what we'd recommend, because Sci-Fi doesn't apply for such funds nor request such funds. What we do say, which actually would be good leadership in that instance, if you do apply them, well, then why not see if you can actually promote them towards reducing the retail rates to people. And a prime example with that would be under our Fiber City Aid program, which is supporting vulnerable families for that $30 a month, where we don't actually reduce the speed. If you look at everybody else that's subsidized, when they lower the price, they've significantly reduced the speed. That is not what Sci-Fi is about. We believe everybody should be equal, should be huge equality in place. So we want vulnerable families to also have these great gigabit speeds. If you were to use those federal funds that are available now to support vulnerable families, there is credits available, which runs at about $30 per month. If you were to actually align that in regards to our Fiber City Aid, those families in your community would actually be seen to be receiving gigabit speeds for zero cost, which goes back to the gentleman's earlier comment of trying to get it down to the $20. There are different ways we're trying to shape this to support you without breaking the project in a sustainable way.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may,
City Attorney.
just to go back to the exclusivity conversation, I do want to note that in the agreement, it is a non-exclusive agreement, but there, except for the first year. And I think, Mr. Bradshaw, if you wish to speak to that, you can, which is, it's fair to conclude that the reason for that is that you have the leg up in designing and installing the infrastructure necessary so that you have it for that 1 year period.
Correct. So where the organization is not utility regulated, say governed by the CPUC, where they have the powers afforded to them to just turn up and pull a permit and you cannot stop them, what Sci-Fi is asking for is really 12 months. It takes us that long to design the entire city, procure the power, get everything set ready to start connecting the community. So we say, listen, we're taking a huge risk in spending all this private investment with no taxpayer subsidy. Let's work in partnership. So we ask you that you just don't solicit anyone. You cannot stop people under the, like say, the CPUC governance from actually installing a competing network to Sci-Fi. But where that entity is not regulated in that instance, just please don't go and solicit them, because we're trying to approach this in a very honest and open and fair partnership manner.
Thank you. We have a question from Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason why I brought up, Mr. Bradshaw, the exclusivity, I wanted it to be beneficial for obviously Sci-Fi Network and the city itself. Would your company be open to the exclusivity clause to be extended out several years in exchange for some profit sharing that can come back to the city as revenue, maybe 5 or 10 years from the start period?
I don't think the California laws actually afford you the opportunity to grant me exclusivity. I don't, and your attorney can maybe answer to that differently, but to my knowledge, you actually can't give that to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That'll end our discussion. We have a first and a second. I think we can have the vote. City Attorney?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm not a Wi-Fi expert. There's an attorney in our office that is Mr. Ching, who's been working with staff on this contract. I don't believe that we can establish exclusivity provisions. I think that's a fair statement. But currently, and the reason for that also, Mayor and Council, is the competitive nature of allowing other companies to come in who may strike a deal with the city and address some of these concerns. But again, that's the extent I can respond.
I understand that they are investing in our infrastructure, so it would not be in benefit for them for us to allow another company to come in.
Yep. Yeah, but we partially allow that with some of our contract providers in terms of evergreen deals, where we give exclusivity for them for these long-term contracts.
Yes, we may be looking at apples and oranges.
Okay.
Because the franchise provisions for waste hauler, for example, it's challenging for most communities of our size to have multiple waste haulers for residential, because then there are different impacts and a city like Los Angeles, it's a little bit different. Even then, they carve up the city into certain exclusive abilities by certain vendors. So
Thank you.
it's at the pleasure of the council.
Mayor Pro Tem, I just want to expand a little bit more. If there is exclusivity for 1 year, why could it not be expanded a couple years and explore the opportunity of maybe 15 years into the contract? That's probably when they will barely start to generate some revenue. We can then piggyback as a city and a profit share. I'm always looking out for the best interests of the community, and I'd like to explore things that normally aren't explored on a legal level.
May I just say that you're not actually giving me exclusivity to the public right of way. You're not giving me any exclusivity. What exclusivity is structured around is that you just won't solicit. That really is it. That you won't just go and start asking other people, even though they're not there. But to the public way itself, from day one, as we sit here today, from day one, it is non-exclusive. I have no exclusivity in this agreement whatsoever.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
It's difficult when a company is financing the whole situation and ask them to become a partner.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. Can we do a roll call vote?
Councilmember, excuse me. Councilmember Elias?
No, and I want to qualify my no. I think we need more time to take a look at this and negotiate.
Councilmember Camacho?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Letts?
Yes.
Mayor Dr. Chancellors?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming in this evening, gentlemen, as well. Next we have the city manager or staff reports. Do we have any this evening?
Really quick, I just wanted our director, Mike Garcia, to give a quick overview of vacancy rates in our community. I think we started quite a few years ago in business attraction, retention efforts, and it's actually pretty hard to find a space in our community. So, Mike, if you wanted to kind of discuss what those vacancy rates are.
Right now with our industrial market, we've got a very strong industrial market. We're seeing values upwards of $68 to $78 for sale of industrial properties. We have a very low vacancy rate right now, 1.1%. It's pretty much on par with the entire LA County region. Even on our retail side, our retail vacancy rate jumped up a little bit. A lot of that has to do with larger properties such as Crossroads Plaza, which is going to soon be filling close to 105,000 square feet of retail space. That's going to significantly drop our retail vacancy rate. We know that the folks at the marketplace, Pico Rivera Marketplace, the Shabani brokers that are working on that property and own that property are going to be working hard to fill the former Baker's Bodega. So we're in a very strong market right now for the real estate holdings within our city. One of the things that I think is important is our industrial product is still very diverse. We don't have a lot of just fulfillment, a lot of just warehousing. We have a very diverse market, and we continually receive requests from property owners and potential developers / investors to look at doing additional industrial property development. We're even seeing industrial lands values creeping up closer to what we used to see in residential, surprisingly, in residential single family. It's a very good time for industrial, and we don't see it calming down for a while. So we are working right now with a group to look at how we can build upon not only the retail that is available, but looking at doing mixed use. So we hope that the real estate market will stay strong for a while, and that Pico Rivera will continue to grow. We're looking forward to some filling some vacancies, even like the old next to the Food for Less at Whittier and Paramount. There's a vacancy there. And what we do in economic development, the real estate side, is really work with the brokers and property owners and just give them our ideas on what we think would work in our community, and then reach out to different groups. I was on the phone earlier with some folks, Chuck from Sprouts and others, that we're trying our best to reach out to different groups to see if there's an opportunity for them to come into our community and provide different offerings that we haven't had in the past. So,
Thank you.
oh, and if any of you would like the reports, we actually work with CoStar. It's analogous to like the multiple listing service. If you're working with a residential broker or agent, they have the multiple listing service. CoStar is kind of what the commercial brokers work with. We can produce some reports that'll give you we produced a 22-page report that we provided the Councilmember Lutz, Mayor Pro Tem Lutz, that we provided yesterday. And these can be provided to you in a digital format or in a hard copy. So if you're ever interested, you need some nighttime reading, let me know.
Thanks, Mike. Also would like to report that in collaboration with the Sheriff Department, there's a testing site in front of their facilities. Today, we've tested about 234 residents, and that's going to continue to move forward. In fact, tomorrow, I think they're actually going to have a separate line for county and city employees in the event they need testing. So it's immediately adjacent next door. So thank the captain over there for bringing the party to the table, and it seems to be working out. That concludes my reports.
Thank you. Next item we go into is our good of the order, AB 1234 reports, new business and old business. And I'd like to remind my colleagues, with new business, you may request to put it on a future agenda item, so we shouldn't be discussing the item. You're just requesting that you would like to put that in a future agenda. As well as old business, you can request a status report, a status update. So it shouldn't be items of extensive discussion per our bylaws. So anybody let's go with Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I think of Pico Rivera, how it's going to be beautified over the upcoming decades, and the roads are going to be improved, and our retail is going to be more robust, I thought what better than to be a part of that movement now, this council, creating a beautification ad hoc committee where every 6 months we come up with a particular project in mind to ensure that it's achieved or the process is started. And one of the first projects I would like to see in a formal beautification ad hoc committee would to take that intersection of Washington and Passons, where we currently have our marker that says Pico Rivera City Hall and Police Department in this particular direction, along with the seals of our local clubs. I would like to do a renovation project where we do the American flag very well lit up, because we do have a veteran community here, so that we show that we're proud of our veteran community, we're proud of our U.S. flag and our Pico Rivera flag, and possibly our California flag, along with newer versions of those clubs, those seals that we have for all the Women's Club and the Kiwanis Club and all the other VFWs and Legions. I see that as an opportunity where we could just give it a facelift.
So
if
this
I
would
can
go
get-
under your new business, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I would like to see maybe if we can get a collective consensus of the council to create that beautification ad hoc committee.
That could be something that I consider. I'm currently working on this because I guess it relates to old business. Our existing ad hocs have expired. So I was requested to consider if we want to continue the existing ad hocs as is, or if we would modify them. So I'm going to ask if each of you can maybe email me an update of where you're at with your current committees as the existing committees were that are now expired. And then we can take into consideration this additional ad hoc to see how we convert it. Would that be agreeable to the city manager?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we need to vote on that, or is this just something for next? Well,
No, I
we
think
said we were
at
going to
the
put it on the next agenda, correct?
Next council meeting, you can reestablish the ad hoc committees or make additions to new committees.
Okay, modify them and make additions. Perfect, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Andrew, Councilmember Lara.
Yes, thank you. I don't have any formal reports to give, but there's two items in old business that I'd like to bring back. One is regarding the then Mayor Raul Elias, his resolutions. I can tell you that the ad hoc met with staff and we made some suggestions, and we'd like to bring those resolutions back one by one to be voted on individually, hopefully at the next city council meeting. Okay. Do I need a second?
No, I can do that.
Thank you. There's another item that's old business. It's from over close to a year ago. The then Public Works Director, Miss, I think,
Ready?
yeah, thank you, Heredia, had presented a report on speed bumps. And I don't know where that went.
Sure.
If we could please bring that back to the next city council meeting and give us an update so that we can determine where we're at with that and if that needs final approval.
Will do.
Thank you. For my last item, for this, I will need a second. This is new business. I would like to direct the city attorney to research and report back if the city of Pico Rivera can prosecute our own misdemeanor and felony cases. So therefore, getting out of the jurisdiction of this current LA County DA and allowing the city to prosecute our own crimes. In addition to that, I know tonight the city of Whittier is discussing the same topic. So there's a potential that we may be able to collaborate or create a joint powers authority. So if I could get a second.
I second it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enthusiastically, I second it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Camacho?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of statements, more old business. I'm glad Councilmember Lara brought out the calming traffic measures that we discussed quite some time. I think it's one of the priorities of our community. We did do assessment. We need to begin to implement those there. In addition to, and we'll get to it, we will discuss also the parking restrictions or permits that we discussed as well. But I think traffic calming measures is important to begin to look how we're going to implement them as well. Once again, I just wanted to make a statement about the testing sites. There's been a lot of demand, a lot going out there. Again, to the Sheriff Department for bringing this partnership together. Thank you, Captain, for that. I know Supervisor Janice Hahn had some at the library just this Monday, but I also don't want to forget about Pico Pharmacy, and individuals there have done an excellent job of continuing to help us here in the city, not only provide the vaccines, but also some of the testing itself. So again, thank you for that. It's and glad to see numbers are trying to kind of back and forth, but I'm optimistic that, we'll begin to plateau, hopefully sooner than later. The agenda had full items that are very important to moving the city forward. Broadband is key. It was discussed, it's a priority, and I'm glad we're moving in that direction. Road improvements, long awaited. We finally got the assessment, major construction, road improvements happening throughout the city, major investments. So I'm glad that we're finally bringing that forward. Two items just need some update on. One in particular, we talked about and passed a vacant lot ordinance. Wanted to ask the question, where are we with, following up with these lots? And of course, there's a few others that had just popped up because the business closed down and now they become a little dumping ground. But where are we as far as enforcement in that vacant lot ordinance?
So what we've done at the staff level is actually identified from utilizing HDL, our property tax database that we get from Hinterleiter de Lamas. We were able to download properties that we've identified as being vacant. What we didn't include was properties that are developed but do not have tenants in them. We have a property up near Beverly Road and Rosemead, and the good thing is that spurred a lot of conversation between my code enforcement staff and I. It does fit in the vacant lot ordinance. We're going to include those type of properties. And we're also going to look at whether we pursue some of those vacancies in the vacant lot ordinance or do them separate. Because of the 90-day time frame within the vacant lot ordinance, sometimes we want to be able to move a little quicker through working with our attorneys to look at doing abatement warrants and others type of measures to move forward on vacant properties that are developed that have been problems for graffiti, vandalism, other types of dumping issues. So we do have the database ready. We have a draft letter, and what we want to start doing is sending them out to the long-term vacant lots. There's a few on Rosemead, a few on Slauson, and making sure that they're aware what the requirements are for landscaping and securing the properties with more than just a chain link fence. That's no longer allowed per the vacant lot ordinance. At a minimum, it's got to be a mini mesh. A mini mesh chain link is a little harder to climb. It's a much tighter mesh, so you can't see as easily into the property. You still can, but as you're driving by, if people are dumping, because that tends to happen on vacant lots, the mini mesh would be an added measure. So we are ready to move forward on it with my executive assistant and my soon-to-be new executive economic development analyst coming in soon. So,
Well, thank you, Director Garcia, for that. I know we need to continue aggressively making sure that these property owners are just not leaving their lots abandoned and as if we're not going to do anything. But I think we're in the right direction there. Just two requests, Mayor. One, if I can, I know that Director Garcia and the team has been working on something we discussed that I brought up last year as it relates to all our railways and underpasses, particularly the ones that are pretty hidden. There's some issues related to fencing some areas. There's issues related to a lot of debris, trash visible to our community. I know that there's been a lot of homeless encampments that our staff, together with the Sheriff Department, have worked towards cleaning those areas up around near businesses and residents. But I know that, as it relates, and I know there's been communication with BNSF and UP on that matter, but I think we need to really get them to begin to invest in securing those areas and clean up those areas, because we can do it, but that's their jurisdiction, and we got to make sure that they're taking care. So if we could just get an update in the near future as to where we are with that, not doesn't have to be the next health meeting, but I know it's an important matter that relates to all of us, and it relates to beautifying the city and keeping it clean as well, and holding those other agencies that have jurisdiction in our community do their job in keeping the city clean as well. And then lastly, new business request that we've discussed in the past of doing a development standards. And I know it's a conversation I've had with the city manager and Director Garcia, and quite frankly, we've had a discussion about development standards as to, we have businesses that, new business, remodels and so forth, and, it's kind of like they choose their own color, design. There's certain, obviously, requirements that we approve, but I think overall we need to develop a development standard here in the city that, if you're going to just pick a coffee shop, a Starbucks, it's not going to be just a box and windows and a door and a logo. It's going to be architecturally designed in a manner that's relevant and beautify the city. And so I think that's important that we work towards creating some type of development standard in the near future. So that's just the request that we build upon this year, Mayor, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councilmember Elias.
Yes, Madam Mayor, can I include new business and old?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, my first item of new business, and again, I understand that it's for discussion, is, again, I've had, a number of residents talk about this, and that's the public parking situation that we have in Pico Rivera, okay? And I know that I've already lived through 2 parking studies, and I think it's important that, that we engage the citizens and residents of the area, with what the plan is, and obviously, in some cases, bring some recommendations, to the council. So I would ask if I could just discuss establishing an ad hoc committee on the parking situation for Pico Rivera.
Okay, do we need a second for that, or will that be considered? No? Okay, we'll consider that in our ad hoc
Thank you.
visions review.
The second item of new business is, and again, this does not have anything to do with the recent ordinance that was passed in terms of, it's what I call a home and property owners protection resolution. And it begins, whereas the city of Pico Rivera and its residents strongly believe in the principles of capitalism and free markets. That includes the rights and privileges of private property owners within the city of Pico Rivera Municipal Code. Whereas new research examining low rent affects tenants and housing markets offers insight into how rent control appears to help affordability in the short run for current tenants, but in the long run, decreases affordability, fuels gentrification, and creates negative externalities on the surrounding neighborhood. Whereas the governing body of Pico Rivera strongly believes that any future consideration of any type of rent control in the city of Pico Rivera, due to its long-term effects on the entire community, must be for the residents to decide rather than the city council. Now, therefore, it be resolved that any future rent control measures for the city of Pico Rivera must be qualified as on an election ballot for approval or disapproval. Be it further resolved that this resolution can only be overturned by a majority vote of 4 to 5 of the city council.
Okay, so this would be for new business to submit for future discussion on future agenda. Thank you.
So I give a second for that.
You okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
In terms of old business, I would like to get a specific date as to when we can approve the Veterans Commission. I have had discussions with the city manager on the input that I've received from the Veterans Group. And by the way, the individual that you recommended, great help to us. So again, I would like to if we could target an April date, for it. Again, I understand that it's going to take a little process to get it started, but I think, this needs to be moved on.
I can work on that. I think that is also what we're discussing in terms of, is it going to be an ad hoc committee or commission formally similar to our
Well-
planning commission?
Well, we already voted for a commission.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so that will be in discussion for one of our next meetings.
Okay. And the last thing is just the status, well, the last thing in terms of old business, because I have another item, is what is the status of the MOU for the Veterans Resource Center?
Yes, I've been in communication with the library. They've been a little non-responsive, so I've actually contacted staff from Supervisor Han's office to follow up and assist. So hopefully I should get a report back fairly soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last item, Madam Mayor. AB 1234 covers areas of ethics training. So if I can, I have a few questions of legal counsel on the matter of ethics. Some of us may need some training in it. May I ask?
What is the request to receive training from the?
Well, I have a question for him, and then again, you know, you could determine whether it is. Counsel, are you aware, or have you counseled Mr. Carmona on retaining an investigative group to investigate me personally? I have learned from an investigator that I've been charged with ethics violations or investigating ethics violations, potential criminal charges by direct city funds to my relatives in the form of veteran grants last year. Also, personnel complaints regarding my behavior with females within the city staff, including the claim that I caused Assistant City Manager a paper cut as she passed me some documents. Now, this investigation has been going on since November, and I agreed to meet with the investigator on Friday the 21st to discover the complaints lodged against me.
Can I hold on for a second to see, City Attorney,
Madam
is this
Mayor,
regarding
and,
personnel matter that needs to be
Let me
closed
address it in this fashion. It is not an AB 1234 issue. AB 1234 deals with Political Reform Act matters, with Brown Act issues. The council, I believe, is all current, and their AB. Okay, I'll retract that. But the issue that Councilmember Elias is raising does give rise to issues of employees, and those are personnel. We have, I would urge the council to tread very cautiously in these public conversations at this point. And it came to my attention today, and I would urge the council and also Councilmember Elias for his own protection that.
So you weren't.
Would you like
weren't
to
informed?
put this item in a closed session for discussion?
Well, that's what I'm asking. If he was not informed, I would request that there be a closed session and discussion on this.
We will plan on doing that at a future date.
Here's the problem that I have, Council, is that in the investigative process, I would be the last person that they would speak to. So they've already spoke to me. So I am anticipating that a report is going to come out. Now, since the city paid for this report, that would become public information.
Not necessarily, council member. I mean, it might be. Again, I don't know what's going to be in the report. I don't know who's been sat down and questioned. Again, Mayor, I would strongly urge that we just end this discussion at this time. We can get the council a full report on, not necessarily the investigative report, but on what is going on.
Consult our city attorney, and then.
Well,
if
and again,
it involves a report we can discuss in.
delays in this may hurt me. You understand that?
I'm sorry, Councilman.
Delays in this situation may hurt, because these, as I understand the allegations here, they're slanderous.
Well, again, I want to exercise, I want to urge the city council that this conversation cease at this point, Mayor. You control the meeting, and
If I would like to, I may direct the city attorney, please we could put this item for closed discussion in the next council meeting.
to the
give us a
extent that it
brief.
is appropriate, yes, we will.
I second that.
Okay,
so
thank
that
you.
it's done. So
Thank
at the
you.
next city council meeting, we will discuss this in closed session. 'Cause
Yes.
Those are serious accusations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I couldn't give my reports now. For new business, the one comment that I would like to request is, I received an email regarding a change of date for a homeless count for February 22nd and 24th. And I wanted to ask Captain Hutak or City Manager, do we have any plans to participate, or are there any city plans that we were planning to participate? And I heard that was moved to February 22nd through 24th.
Yes, we do. We're in discussions now. We're probably going to have Park and Recs, part-time staff kind of come out and assist with that count on those days. So we actually are underway with that process.
And you will request volunteers such as ourselves, commissioners, or any residents that wish to participate?
Yeah, we're trying to also be cognizant. They are going to give us supplies, just to make sure that we're all safe. But yes, we will open it up to any and all volunteers.
Thank you so much. In regards to my AB 1234, I was elated and so excited. I attended the U.S. National Conference of Mayors in Washington, D.C. It was in person this year, and I attended several workshops that came back with stacks of homework, which I've provided to our assistant city manager. I had many questions. Thank you. Thank you, assistant to the city manager, Hernandez, and our city manager. I was able to meet with our Congresswoman Linda Sanchez on one of the dates as well. So we had a one-on-one meeting, give her a few brief updates regarding our Whittier Narrows Dam project and ask her a few questions for ourselves. And a big surprise was that we received an invitation, all of the Latino mayors, to attend the White House reception one evening. Well, to our surprise, Joe Biden showed up. So we got to meet the President of the United States. I was able to shake his hand, and I invited him to Pico Rivera anytime he wants to come around to give me a call. And that was super exciting. So they did have strict protocols. We were not able to take off our masks. We had to be tested every day for the conference. Not only a rapid test for the conference, but the White House had us go to take a PCR test the same day of the event. So it was super exciting, and I feel completely privileged. There were only about 16 of us, mayors, most of us from Southern California, but also included the mayor from Long Beach, Robert Garcia, mayor from Downey, Blanca Pacheco, Paramount Mayor Brenda Olmos, LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, as well as wonderful Latina Mayor Regina Romero from Tucson. So most of us, I'm proud to say, we're from Southern California. And it was really, really exciting. And I feel like the purpose that Joe Biden, the First Lady, told us about was that she felt that Latinos were instrumental in Joe Biden's election. And she wanted to continue a dialogue of the issues that were most important to our Latino communities, whether you're a small or large city. And so I felt that that was a great gesture on behalf of our First Lady. And it was super exciting. So I'm back. I'm a little bit tired from jet lag, but that was an exciting thing that I got to do this week. In addition, which I'd like to remind my colleagues, item number 4 on our agenda was mayor's appointments. I did switch some individuals that were termed out of there was one 2-year appointment. City clerk, if you can please provide, I don't know if you've already emailed each of them, a list of the boards and agencies that you're on. Most of them, I think, have stayed the same. But I am now on the Sanitation District meeting, and I attended that through Zoom on January 12th. One interesting thing that we discussed was that the Sanitation District, they can measure in the wastewater the amount of COVID that they find. So even if individuals don't have symptoms, one indicator of an increase in COVID that the Sanitation District can find is within the wastewater that comes out. There's an indicator. So that's really interesting. A second item they said is that 6% of their staff were out sick due to positive COVID. So they too are dealing with staffing shortages. So I thought that was really interesting. There is a Cal Recycle grant available, which I believe hearing about this regarding SB 1383 with the organics diversion. I remember hearing a presentation about this. I don't know if we applied or we're in the process, but we can get an update on that in the future. And there was a big conversation about the sewer spill in December 30th in Carson and the odors and sewer spillage that came over there. So That one was really interesting, but my colleagues, any of those committees that you're on, you can provide us here a brief report during this report out. So when you attend those meetings, and I'd like to hear what's going on, and SIACA, whether it's the animals, the vector control, and the mosquitoes, just give us a brief snippet update of what you guys are discussing there. And appreciate that. You don't need to send me a long 2-page email report. So thank you. That's it for my report. So I think that is it. We have one closed session item, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. We do have one item under conference with labor negotiator is listed under item A in closed session. It's appropriate to recess into closed session.